Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the NerfHerder Council.
Let's try that again now that I'm unmuted. We got problems all over the place. Anyway, welcome to another edition of the NerfHerder Council. This is a WTF Friday. I apologize for the echo. I'll try to sort that out here in a second. This is what happens when you're on multiple cameras in the same room. I'm not sure how to fix this. Ooh, that is bad. I hope that fixed it. Okay, let's try this again. Anyway, if you knew the setup over here, you'd understand. This is very amateur hour, but it's the best I got, so deal with it. Anyway, this is a WTF Friday. I do apologize for having to postpone this. We had some personal stuff going on in the family this past week, so we weren't able to stream on our normal schedule as we had intended to. But we are back. Everything is fine now, so no worries about that. But family does come first, so we had to take care of that before anything else. Now, on to tonight's chill build. What we are building is an ATST that is a fan-designed kit. So it is not an official Lego design, and it is not official Lego that we're building with either. So we get to make this up as we go. I'm very glad that I actually pulled ahead on this one a little bit. I checked it out ahead of time because when the kit showed up, I looked at the contents, and it's nothing but itty-bitty little parts, like nothing that we would ever want to be dealing with without some pre-sorting and whatnot. So I made sure I actually have built it through, checked for any missing parts, and actually sorted it out so we know exactly what we're building with, because this thing was a nightmare. You look at something like a standard Lego kit, for example. In fact, let me pull down the ATST over here to show you. So with something like this, what you end up having is something that's sturdy, playable. You know, it gets the job done, gets the point across, but you know, it's a little lacking in detail, but it's definitely like playable. You know, nothing's falling off over here, nothing's gonna break, so it's good. The one we're building tonight is a very different ethos. This one that we're going to be building is actually, it's almost like model level quality. The level of detail is insane, but in order to do that, you need a lot more pieces and a lot more smaller pieces. So I opened the bags up, and it's the typical, you know, knockoff bag of bricks, and inside is just an unsorted pile of dark gray and light gray pieces, all about you know, one stud across. So it was frankly kind of a nightmare to sort this out originally. What I've done is I've used Tupperware containers to break out things into their component pieces. And you see the fact that I can even use these small little containers kind of tells you what we're dealing with as far as the quantity of stuff. And also, you know, I like to keep my Lego fresh, you know, just in case so it doesn't go bad. Terrible joke. I'm sorry. But trust me, this is going to be a lot better this way. So let me bring up the instructions here and put this ATST back. There we go. So I've got the instructions queued up here. I'm going to go ahead and add that in here. And right off the bat, so they send you a PDF. You don't get any printed instructions with these things. So we've got the PDF here. You notice it's some Chinese here. Oh, scrolling a little bit too much. And you get stuff like this. So this is fun. Basically, what this is saying is In some cases, there were some color substitutions. So the instructions call for one color and they didn't give you that color. And in some cases, they straight up just don't even give you the parts. So this guy doesn't exist. This guy over here doesn't exist. Hope you can see my mouse cursor over there. So yeah, so we've got some black pieces instead of some dark gray. We've got some, we got a black walkie-talkie instead of a gray walkie-talkie. Forget these decorative bits. This is actually a skateboarding helmet. That's kind of a fun use right there. I wish I had one of those. And then just a small color substitution here on what is actually a wheel component, like a hubcap piece from the Speed Champions line of licensed cars that Lego sells. So that's fun. So insane detail. We get a couple more things here. So like we're not getting this piece. We're getting this piece over here. Come on. There we go. Love macOS. Again, get a color substitution. And then there's this bastardry here. What this is a stand. It's exactly what it looks like. There's no instructions for it because it's pretty straightforward. But the model is super detailed, but it does not stand on its own. It's too heavy, it's too dense, and it cannot support its own weight. So in the product shots, of course, this thing doesn't exist. They've apparently super glued the joints to make sure that everything looks as perfect as it can. But in reality, you get this thing. You have to have this because the thing will not stand up without it. So I pre-built that. Sorry, I cheated and did that ahead of time. But yeah, that was a bummer. I was really hoping that this thing could at least like stand a chance of standing on its own, but apparently it was never even designed to do so. So we got that going on. So moving ahead, we are into the build now. Now, if you could see this in the corner here, I'm not sure what size screen you're viewing the stream on, but what we're doing is this thing is actually detailed inside and out. So this thing is designed to hold two pilots side by side, like as the design should, and it has a fully detailed interior too. Now, the other thing about these kits is that you don't get any figures with them. Most times, especially if it's a fan design, you don't get any figures to go with them, and any printed parts are usually just going to be blank. So there's a couple cases in here where it's supposed to be like a printed control panel or something like that. We don't have that, so it's going to be what it is. But yeah, I'm going to bring in the pieces here and we're going to start building. Now, what we do on our WTF Friday shows, especially these chill builds, is we talk about whatever comes up. So if you've got something on your mind, drop it in the chat. We will go ahead and bring it up on screen. We'll talk about it. Not a lot of Star Wars news just yet to talk about. I assume that that will be happening next month at Celebration. So we're going to keep that light. Our next regularly scheduled show is next Wednesday, and we've got only one more after that before JT and I go off to Star Wars Celebration. So we might not even have a May 25th episode of the main show to talk about anything because we'll be actually in Anaheim preparing for Celebration. We're not sure if, given the time change and everything, if we're going to actually get around to doing a show that night or not, because we'll be doing some pre-celebration celebrating of our own. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to bring this in here and hopefully we can get to that. Okay. So yeah, you don't get to look at my ugly mug anymore. We're just going to do the side by side. So we've got the, sorry, this is actually backwards. It's mirrored for me. But we're going to do the side by side here of the instructions and the pieces parts. So let me go ahead and spread these out here. Show you what we've got going on. Hopefully this will speed things up a little bit because we've got, you know, a lot of pieces here and not a lot of time to build tonight. Unfortunately, I have something to do in the morning pretty early. So I am going to have to make this a relatively short stream tonight, guys. So as you can see, what we have here is a sea of tiny little parts. Like there's very few big pieces in here whatsoever. Whoever designed this really likes what they call greebling, which is all the little bits that just add mechanical detail just for the sake of it. And Yeah, it's not really a fun build, I'll be honest with you. The finished product is damn impressive, but this is definitely more about the destination than the journey. The build is not a good time. But at least I can confirm that we were missing almost no parts from the kit, and anything that was missing, I was able to fix from my own collection. So that was good. Let me just get building here. So we don't have a lot of stuff to do here. Now, I did have some things on my mind that I wanted to discuss tonight, but they are actually not very much Star Wars related. There's not a lot of Star Wars news going on. When last we met, I was actually in the process of getting through Falling Skies, Falling Star. It's one of the High Republic books. And I got to say, it's pretty good. If you're not keeping up on the Star Wars literature side of things, the High Republic Initiative is actually really cool. I would definitely recommend getting into it. You can pretty much jump in anywhere. They're good about making sure that you're not totally lost if you haven't already, checked out the previous books. So that's really cool of them. I like that. It's a pretty dramatic story. I like the stakes involved, and it's interesting. They're bringing in new ideas without like breaking canon. A lot of people complain about the books because they do some really weird stuff in there. And like, that's not Star Wars. Well, this actually does to me feel kind of like Star Wars. What it feels like is some fresh ideas going in there for a change, which is very nice. And it kind of I've said this before, it makes Qui-Gon Jinn make a lot more sense. So if you're on the camp of the camp that says that Qui-Gon was like a crap Jedi because he was so different from everybody else and wouldn't just follow the council. Basically, the High Republic shows that he was following an older ethos of the Jedi. And I'm hoping that when we get through the different phases of the High Republic saga, that it will show all the events that led up to how the Jedi Council changed into what we saw in the prequels. Because at this point in the High Republic saga, everybody's more like Qui-Gon, kind of doing their own thing, a little loose with the rules, more honoring the spirit of the Jedi Code instead of the letter of the Jedi Code. And it's a really cool interpretation. So something I want to point out here already at step 2, you notice in this main section of the step here, it doesn't really show anything as far as like studs on the brick, but you can see up here that it has it. This is something you get with fan designs and auto-generated instructions. Is a lot of times you kind of have to interpret based on what's not visible, which way things are oriented and where things go. So it's a little tricky that way, but it does work. So moving on. So High Republic, Falling Skies, I think that's what it's called. I really should look that up. But High Republic books, highly recommended. And the latest one that came out a month ago is the one I'm talking about. And that's definitely I don't know if it's a must read, but definitely an enjoyable read. And a little easier to follow, I think, than the previous one. Because it seems like they seem to come out in waves, right? There's different waves and different phases of the High Republic. And this is the main book anchoring the second phase of the second wave of the first phase of the High Republic. There's 2 waves in this phase, and then there's another phase coming out in the fall or something. And this thing, this is the main anchoring book. So if you're going to check out only one thing to kind of keep up on the main points of the story, then this is the book to be checking out. I apologize for the camera here. I'm actually using my cell phone as the second camera, and it is just insisting on focusing down on the pieces instead of any closer. So we're just going to have to work with that. Now, some other things that have been on my mind, though, because, as I said, the news out of Star Wars is a little stagnant right now, but it's kind of to be expected. What with Celebration coming up, I'm sure we'll get all the big news feeds in there, big info dumps and whatnot. The franchise that has been absolutely spewing content and teasers and news at us, though, is Star Trek. So brace yourselves. The Star Wars show is going to be talking Trek for a minute here because I'm the only one on here, and I can talk about whatever I damn well please. including the fact that, as you can see over there in the, yeah, maybe, yes, my giant finger. As you can see over there in the instructions, this is really weird to do cameras like this. This bright green color is like, hey, any color you want, throw it in there. No one's going to see it. What they don't tell you is what colors you shouldn't use in case you need those later. So I think I'm gonna use light gray. I think that's the color that they've supplied. But yeah, sure would be handy to know, wouldn't it? Instead, you just get to guess and hope that you don't use a piece that you need in a specific color later. Again, it's one of those cases where the studs are facing away from the angle of the instructions, but it is what it is. I've built it already once before, so at least I know I'm not screwing this thing up too badly yet. So as you can see, we're building a lot of small parts here, so it's really slow going. I really think we're only going to get through this pile of pieces tonight, um, just because of the I hate to say it, but the tedium of building this stuff is so detailed that it's really slow going. The end result is worth it, but boy, it's a long road getting there. So anyway, talking Trek for a second. So Paramount Plus has launched this initiative, I'll call it, where there is basically a new episode of Star Trek on every week throughout the year. They've got 5 shows currently running, which is crazy. It's a crazy amount of Trek. But we've got currently airing or in production of some kind. We've got Star Trek Discovery. We've got Star Trek Picard. We've got Star Trek Prodigy, which is a kids show on Nickelodeon. We've got Star Trek Lower Decks, which is an animated show from one of the co-creators of Rick and Morty. And about to launch the first week of May is Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So 5 different shows, and basically as soon as one series ends its season, then another one begins its season. So there's always a new episode of Star Trek every week. Now, on one hand, I'm a huge nerd and I love Star Trek, so that should be cool. But I feel like at this point, it's a case of quantity over quality. Star Trek Picard was supposed to be, everyone was all excited because he got Patrick Stewart back playing, Captain Picard, which would be great if the show was any good. So the problem is I'm really having a hard time getting into it. Discuss Metal Joe. Thanks for getting my back there, buddy. Yeah, I'm always the guy who has the AV problems when we start off. The one problem with doing solo shows is you really have no way of knowing if your audio is good because you can't check it and do it at the same time. So it's always a bit of a nail biter. Here's another case where I don't know what color I should be using here because I might need this color later for something. So we're just going to hope that all these any color parts can be light gray because I don't remember which colors I used in the first build. The one thing I know is we've got the right quantity of every part that we need. So if it ends up being the wrong part or the wrong color of part later on, too bad. The Empire builds these things en masse, and maybe sometimes they substitute metals. I don't know. But yeah, so we're talking Star Trek here for a second. And it's interesting that there are a couple of copycats who are throwing back to the the golden era of Star Trek, like the 90s with Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager, shows like the Orville, for example. And then you get Star Trek coming along, who is referencing the characters from that era, but doing such a different thing with the franchise. It's funny because Star Trek was dormant for so long. After Enterprise went off the air, there wasn't a new show on TV until Discovery showed up 4 years ago. And it was so vastly different from what everyone was, thinking they were going to get. They were kind of, enough time had passed that people stopped being worn out on the formula and were really like looking for that nostalgia bait of getting Star Trek back. And then this new Star Trek comes around and it's nothing like what they had experienced before. so they had like a slam dunk home run just set up for him, just teed up to say, we'll just put out more of the same old thing with better production, no problem. But instead, what we get is this entirely new vision that is polarizing, to say the least. And I'm really having a hard time trying to reconcile that. Not because I'm, such a purist and I just want what I, grew up on. But moreover, my problem is I'm having a hard time deciding if these shows are any good or not on their own. I mean, forget about whether or not they're good Star Trek. I just don't know if they're good shows. And I feel like every week that I watch, I'm already going into it with that bias of like trying to find reasons that support my "it's no good" attitude. And that's a real bummer because I want to enjoy it and I'm having a hard time. And it's really unfortunate because it's more Star Trek than we've ever gotten, and I love Star Trek. Not as much as Star Wars, but it's near and dear to my heart. Grew up with it, and I'm trying to find reasons to like it and finding more reasons not to. It's a real bummer. So you want Picard to do well, knowing the production schedule. It feels like they're doing a long haul 3-season story that will pay off in the end. Right now, it's not that much fun. Exactly, Joe. You are exactly right. That's the problem I'm having. Is it's like you pull this character out of mothballs, you get Sir Patrick Stewart back to play the role, and then you go and do something, completely left field with the character that doesn't even feel like the character anymore. And I know artistically it's probably more interesting to play a new take on the character, but if you're going to continue a character's story, I feel like you have to give it the same tone. You can't go swerving out of left field and throwing stuff in that's, not consistent with the character. And I hate to be one of those fans that, tries to write his own headcanon from the background, but we had 7 seasons with the character on Next Generation to really get a feel for, who this character was. Oh, and then the 4 movies as well on top of that. And then this new show comes around and the character's like completely different. Like there's a few glimmers here and there when he starts pontificating and grandstanding about, his belief in the foundations of the Federation and whatnot. But other than that, it's nothing like the captain that we got to know over the course of about 15 years of shows and movies. It makes no sense. Now, this is an interesting one. The idea that movie Picard is a different character than TV Picard for no real reason. There is a real reason there behind the scenes, and it's simply that Patrick Stewart fancied himself as a bit of an action hero for a minute. That's why, he gets to basically be the Kirk of the movies, where all of a sudden now he's in fist fights and shooting phasers or, holographic Tommy guns of his first contact. And it's a little ridiculous. It's a left turn swerve, but he wanted a more action oriented character to play. So they gave him more stuff to do in the movies. And it's a little bizarre. It's a bit of a stretch. I guess it's no worse based on the age of the actors at the time the movies were made to say, like, if William Shatner could do it, then I guess Patrick Stewart could too. But Patrick Stewart, as bad of an action hero as Shatner made, I feel like Patrick Stewart is even farther off the mark. Not because he's a bad actor or anything, but his strength lies in his character performances and the delivery of lines, not in, lock and load, let's go kill some aliens or whatever, the action of the week is. So yeah, I laugh a little bit every time I watch the movies, and I have to buy in that, Picard's all of a sudden a badass that people need to fear. Like, is he really? Like, is he? Are you sure about that? So, yeah, I like the movies, but the character is definitely not the same character as the one who played in the TV show. Now, I appear to have goofed because I had every piece, and now I am missing the one little blue axle that goes in here. Now, the good news is this is completely superfluous. It's really just there to lock these 2 pieces together. So we're not really, screwed without it, but oops. strangely, like everybody who builds Lego or buys a lot of Lego, you get all those little spare parts with every kit. So I went through trying to find, um, some spare axles because the tolerances, especially on like Technic pieces, like these pins and axles and whatnot, are so small that Lego is really the only company that can do them well. And unfortunately, I don't actually have any of the spare blue pins. So when I was trying to disassemble the kit originally, I ended up using channel locks. I had to literally pull these things out with channel locks to get the pieces to come apart again. And I mangled one of the pins, but it's in there and holding. But I don't know where the other one went. So that's an unfortunate oversight. The other unfortunate oversight is I've got pieces that aren't. Oh, never mind. I had something a little loose, and that's why stuff wasn't lining up. Never mind. Never mind. But you can see we're 9 steps in, and we've got like nothing so far. So this is the tedium I'm talking about with this kit. Like it's worth it in the end, but oh boy, yeah, you really got to settle in and just get ready to have yourself some aching thumbs by the time you're done with this stuff. Like I feel like some of this stuff, like as we're building here, you see we've got these little pieces like this and stuff. I feel like some of the parts in here are just used as like a flex by the designer to be like, bet you didn't know this could connect this way. Because all we're doing here is we're just trying to put something with 2 studs in this location so we can connect something to it. Did it really have to connect to a pin or a hinge system right there? Or could we just have like, I don't know, taken like a piece like this, just a regular plain old piece and just, there it is, it's done. So it's like I said, I feel like the designer at some points was just like, I've got a clever thing that you haven't seen before. Let me show off a little bit. It's a weird thing, but maybe it's for structural rigidity. But I mean, this thing is built like a tank, which is kind of the problem of the whole design, actually. It's too heavy to support its own weight. But it's detailed, by God. You're definitely getting some detail in this kit. Like we're literally building like a gear shift or something for the pilots here. It's very detailed. If you just like knowing that inside the AT-AT that you will never take apart or look at because it'll fall apart if you do, um, that you've got seats and control panels and all that for your pilots, then all right, this is the kit for you. So yeah, so we're building an interior here. It's starting to show at least some signs of life, but not the best. But yeah, the other thing that I have an issue with this modern era of Star Trek is that what they love to do is they love to do these season spanning arcs, right? And that's the general format of television these days, especially on streaming, is you have like a season long story arc. So instead of being, you know, a series of stories, it's really just like one story broken up into, 6, 8, 10, 13 chapters, whatever it may be. And I feel like a lot of times what you're actually getting is you're getting a movie length script that's padded out to reach an episode count for like no particular reason. And it's a real bummer because like this Picard series so far this season it's a decent story about time travel and correcting the timeline and sort of stuff, but it doesn't need to be an entire like 10 episode arc. Like they could have gotten this done in like 3 or 4. Like I'm really glad that the Kenobi series coming out, knowing that it began life as a movie script, is only a 6 episode season. They have said it's a season, not a closed ended series. So we might get future seasons. Who knows? But I do like that instead of padding this thing out to a ridiculous degree, they're just like, look, we've only got this much story to tell, so we'll run it a little long, but we're not gonna be stretching this out to fill like 10 episodes or anything like that. Because it would just be egregious. The pacing is so bad in some cases. Um, Sorry, I'm foaming around looking for a piece here. I believe it would be this. So yeah, this little guy right here should have details on it according to the instructions as a control panel. Um, I don't have that. I don't have details on it. So womp womp. Not really a big deal. Now here's one of the more fun building techniques that you won't typically see. I think I've seen they're starting to use it in a couple sets, but Lego typically won't do this. This is a minifigure hand. And it's a unique piece in that it's got a slight angle to it. Like the wrist itself, the hand is at a bit of an angle there, you can see. And it makes for an atypical connection. So if you want like a funky angle on something for a little stick, a lot of fan designers like to use this. So we're just using it actually as a gear shift of sorts. And it works really well because it's at that weird angle. So I like fan kits for these sort of like unorthodox building techniques sometimes. I thought that was a pretty cool inclusion there, and it works really well. So it's a cool use there. It's in Lego speak, it's what they call nice parts usage. So we got a couple ball joints here. This is going to end up forming the angles that connect to the sides of the head of the AT-AT. I'm sorry, ATST. Again, kind of a cool technique there. It's a way to free up the geometry so it can be at whatever angle it needs to be instead of the fixed degrees that Lego builds pieces in. So we stack these on top, and then these will slot into things on the sides of the ATST head to be angled at whatever angle they need to be, and they can rotate and do all that stuff. So it's good stuff. Checking a notification here just to see. All right. It's not on here, but I'm going to give a quick plug. I'm not sure if you know this or not. It's kind of a soft launch so far, but NerfHerder Steve has his own gaming channel now on Twitch, which is actually called NerfHerder Games. He's done a few streams so far. He is planning on being on tonight at some time, but he wasn't 100% committed to that. So if you find the chill build with the ATST here to be a little slow for your taste and you want to see what Steve's doing over there, feel free to check it out. It is a Twitch only for the time being. I think it's going to stay at Twitch only as well. But yeah, he's invested a lot of time and energy in getting a pro looking setup going over there. So go ahead and give him a follow. Check out his videos and stuff. So far, he's been playing some Elden Ring, some GTA. We're going to end up, we might jump on like co-stream sometime, do a couple more games. We've got some retro gaming stuff planned that might show up either on the main channel or maybe over on the games channel at some point for WTF Friday. His schedule is a little more frequent, actually. So if you're finding that we don't show up on your screens often enough, that's a good way to get, your NerfHerder fix, so to speak. So go ahead and check that out if you want to at some point. All right, so Joseph Wren chiming in again. This is an interesting one. So yeah, so this overarching story for this season of Picard is has to do with Q. So it's cool to get John Delancey back and see that character again. But yeah, he's talking about Picard becoming human again because at the end of season 1, Picard was basically made into an android. his body up and died, and they gave him an android body instead. So that was kind of a cop-out way to say, like, yeah, the character's dying. And then, end of the last episode of the season, they're like, but we put his consciousness into a robot. Here you go. So a little ridiculous there, but yeah. Back for Blood. I assume that is a video game. So clearly I have not jumped into it. Yeah, if you want someone who actually keeps up on games, that's definitely Steve for you, bud. I play some stuff, but I'm pretty much exclusively a Switch guy. So the last game that I picked up was Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, and I've been playing that a little bit. I got to say that The graphics performance of the Switch, I don't think is quite up to snuff for the game. Like there's a lot of draw distance problems, things like popping in and out of screen and all that sort of stuff. It's a little bit of a bummer that way, but yeah, Back for Blood, I don't know much about that. So, feel free to clue me in on that, Joe. But Steve's running, I think he's running PlayStation and Xbox over on the games channel. So if you're more of the current gen game stuff, I don't know if he's PS5 yet or Series X, but it's at least last gen, if not current gen gaming. And he's got a couple other people like joining him on those streams and stuff. So it's cool. It's like a slightly different flavor of NerfHerder stupidity. So definitely worth it if you want to check out something a little different. Now, fortunately, this stuff is going a little faster since I pre-sorted this stuff. I can't tell you the hours I spent trying to hunt through everything when I started building this kit originally. The first thing I did, though, is I did actually do some pre-sorting when I first opened up the bags. A lot of people, like, I don't know how many people out there actually had Lego as a kid and had like just bins sorted by color. So, we'd get the kits and then we'd build them and then we would immediately like break them down to build, our own stuff. But our sorting system was just to, throw all the gray pieces in one bin and all the black pieces in one bin and so on and so on. Because it seems to be like the most common sense, like simple approach. But it turns out that it's much harder to try to find one specific gray piece in a sea of gray pieces than it is to find one specific color of a piece in a sea of the same piece. So what I started to do with this was I took all the pieces and I broke them out like in like 4 major categories and then refined it down from there and from there so I could actually start finding pieces a little quicker. Like, round pieces go here. Long skinny pieces like this go here. If it's got no studs on top, like a piece like this, then it went in a different pile, that kind of stuff. It was the only way I saved my sanity because I think all totaled to build this kit from the ground up, sorting and all was probably like a 6-hour process. And this is like a 400 piece kit. Like its piece count is not very high, but if you don't sort things ahead of time, you are going to drive yourself absolutely insane. So fortunately, what I did was I went through, I had never seen the Punisher series when it was on Netflix. So I went through and decided to, get caught up on that since I had, hours to kill and needed something to keep my mind occupied. Ended up working pretty well. Oh, there we are. I was like, how can I miss these little pieces? So these little pieces here, in case you're not aware, these are actually bucket handles. So if you get a minifigure with a little Lego bucket, this is the handle that they attach to it. In this case, they're doubling as headrests. So again, nice parts usage. It's kind of fun to see all the different stuff people come up with to, use these pieces. The other thing that's making this build kind of weird is that you notice Lego likes their even numbers, like 2 and 4 and things like that. So this is actually, if you look, it's like 4 wide, but there's this center line going on here. And trying to center things or work with odd numbers in Lego can get pretty wonky at times. They've kind of cheated in recent years and started introducing things like this, 3 pieces wide, that kind of thing. These are called jumper plates where you get like, it's 2 studs on the top, but it's 3 studs wide. So it's a little bit of a cheat on Lego's part to simplify building for odd numbered widths and whatnot, but it doesn't fix all the problems. It can still be grisly at times to figure out how to center things if the width isn't quite what you need. This is where I wish I had somebody else in the room with me to tell me where the hell the damn piece I'm looking for is. Because this is not doing it for me. Now I'm starting to wonder if I actually forgot to put it in here. What I'm looking for is the one piece that goes across the top here. There it is. It was hiding under the whip. Yes, there's a Lego whip that gets used as a cable piece here, which is kind of fun. All right, so we're looking good. I think we got most. Nope, not quite everything here. Still building out the interior. Got to make sure our ATST pilots are well handled and well protected. What do we got here? Okay, yeah. So now we're getting into the details of stuff. Now, if you can figure out where the hell this tube comes from or attaches to based on these instructions here, you are a rock star, because I had no idea whatsoever. I'm usually pretty good at figuring this sort of stuff out, but yeah, this one stumped me to no end. Spoiler, it just goes over here on the other side. But I was thinking it was like attached here, like in the center or something, or, somewhere, because it looks like it, in the angle, it kind of like just sticks out the bottom. But actually, that's just what hangs down from, the piece just fell off because it doesn't have that pin in there like I was supposed to have. I guess it was required. Anyway, yeah, it just clips on this other side here and ends up just becoming a hose detail basically for some stuff hanging off the back. So I don't know what the step is for. One of the fun things about it, I guess. So we're just going to move on here. So now we're building the back panel. So it's giving us a little preview of this whole assembly that we're going to be building. It does a lot of that where it kind of gives you a sneak preview of what's going on, which is cool. This is one of the more confusing things about this kit. Okay, so the base of this step are these two pieces just being laid, side by side like this, which makes no damn sense because Lego very much has a 2x3 piece. So why are you giving me two 1x3 pieces when this could have been done with one simple piece? I do not understand it. Those are some of the excruciating things that I think was either just to drive up the piece count or, I don't know, just make it extra fiddly. Maybe it was just a matter of like the original fan design used the better piece, and the company, making these pieces is like, well, we don't have that in our inventory, so we're just going to give you, two smaller pieces that can add up to that piece. But either way, not cool. Not cool at all. I hate it when you can do things faster and easier with something else, and they give you like all these little fiddly bits instead. But yeah, so to catch you up on Star Trek Picard a little bit, for those of you just tuning in, so I'm a Trek nerd in addition to being a Star Wars nerd, and we're talking about trying to reconcile new Trek with old Trek, and trying to figure out if the lack of enjoyment, since it is very tonally different from old Trek, if it's simply, being stodgy and nostalgic for the Trek of the 90s and the 80s that I grew up on, or if it's just objectively not as good. Because I feel like in a lot of cases, like the writing and the pacing and the character choices are just weird. And it's not that they couldn't, it's that they just won't. Like they're so stuck on this, like, this is what Star Trek is now. We're not gonna do that old dotty stuff. And problem is, that's what people want. Like you can throw Disney under the bus all you want for like The Force Awakens being a rehash of the original trilogy, but damn it, that's what the fans wanted. They got exactly what they wanted. They wanted, the original trilogy back because they had enough of the prequels and they were looking for a return to form. And I think after, a 15-year hiatus from TV, which is how long Star Trek was off the air between Enterprise being canceled and Discovery coming back, I don't think there was any reason that they had to go and do this like crazy new formula for Star Trek. I don't think anyone was still burnt out on old Trek. I think they just wanted a return to form. And instead they went and redesigned the Klingons and gave it this like gritty new edge, and frankly broke the canon in a lot of ways with all the new technology and stuff. Holographic displays in the era of Kirk and stuff like that, for example. but they're like bound and determined. But they still honor the past and recognize that it's all one continuity. It just doesn't hold together very well because it's such a weirdly different style of show. And I just wonder why they're so averse to just giving fans exactly what they want. I'm cautiously optimistic, although I feel like it might just be desperation. So the other odd thing is that we are at the time of the announcement I'm about to tell you about. We were halfway through. We were 5 episodes through a 10-episode season of Star Trek Picard, and they made a casting announcement for Picard season 3. They dropped the trailer for it and everything. And just like they did for season 2, they announced like the returning cast members, right? And this time, the returning cast members from previous shows that they're hyping up is what everyone was hoping for the whole time, which is literally every main character from the Next Generation crew. So everyone who's not dead or had been written off of Next Generation at the time it went off the air is officially confirmed to be returning next year. So you've got Riker and Troy and Dr. Crusher and Worf, and it said Brent Spiner, by the way, which last I checked, Data Dunn died in Star Trek Nemesis. So I have no idea how they're going to do that one. But Brent Spiner has been back to play various generations of the Sung family, and also reprised his role last season on Picard for some flashbacks and dream sequences. So it's not impossible to have the character back in some way, shape, or form. But androids may be ageless and live forever, but humans don't. And no slight to Brent Spiner, but the man, he's clearly aged in a way that is implausible for an android to have aged at this point. And it's just not fair to try to trot him out, put a hairpiece on him, and digitally de-age him to try to roll out Data one more time. Like, guy, just let the character retire or recast or something. It's like if they tried to get Mark Hamill to be doing Luke Skywalker, with prosthetics on the Mandalorian rather than, the deep fakes and the de-aging and all the stuff that they were doing with him. It's just not fair to the actors to trot him out there and just like be like, yeah, time passes and this is the best we could do. Look at this old fart trying to, relive his 40s or whatever. So we'll see what happens next season with Picard. The one thing we do know is that it was filmed back to back with season 2. So as soon as they wrapped on this season of Picard, they immediately rolled into next season, and that's supposed to be the end of the series. So hopefully, as Joe alluded to earlier in the chat, hopefully this was all part of the plan. This is like a 3-chapter saga where you get Picard being reborn in season 1, and then season 2, he's, I don't know, dealing with Guinan and Q for whatever reason. And then there's a reason he has to get back together with the Next Generation crew to kind of like round out the storyline in season 3. But yeah, so far there have been some seriously bewildering choices on this show. And as far as what I was hoping to get and what was delivered, it's way, way different. And I always wonder if that's a failing of the fandom to expect things and then be upset when they don't get them, or a failure on the showmaker's part to not deliver what the fans want. I feel like there's a middle ground there somewhere, and I'm not really sure what it would be. Joe chiming in with an interesting bit that I did not know about. I usually hear about behind the scenes stuff, but yeah, so here's what I know about Nemesis. It was purposely written as it could be a conclusion, but not necessarily. Basically, they were hedging their bets to say if it did well enough, they would continue. But if not, then they would be content with leaving the franchise where it was. And that's why, Spiner actually said he wanted to kill the character off. Like he was aging out of it, he realized, and he just wanted the character to be done. What I did not know is that, if they had greenlit another movie, he would have come back as Data and not as the prototype or weird third brother you never knew about between Data and Lore, that they discovered and pieced together. For what purpose, I don't know, by the way. That's one of those plot points in Nemesis that didn't really make sense. I think it was just a chance for Patrick Stewart to go riding in a dune buggy. Back to the whole, whatever Sir Patrick wants, he gets kind of thing. But yeah, they really haven't. They've name dropped B4 and Picard, but that would be the most logical android to pick up with. And instead, they've dragged Data out of mothballs whenever the story beats demanded it for Picard. It's a little strange. But yeah, we'll see what next season's storyline ends up being on Picard. We're going to get that next year. I think we'll get another season of. I think all the shows will get another turn in the barrel on Paramount Plus before we get another season of Picard, which frankly I'm fine with. The other thing that's bugging me about Picard, I was so pumped when the season started. It was a cool premise, and I really liked the change in tone from the previous season. Like the previous year, the characters were weird, and a lot of the choices were confusing with the storyline and whatnot. And I felt like, this season really kind of like hit the ground running with an interesting premise, and it's just kind of waned since then. And I'm really bummed out about that, because it really had a lot of promise, and I feel like they're kind of spinning their wheels like this. Like I was saying, I feel like they had like a movie length script, and then they said, well, we've got 10 episodes to fill, so let's see what we can build out of this. So you get a whole bunch of weird stuff in there that really is an aside and doesn't need done, but it's a way to pad out the time, because you got a 10 episode order to fill. So let's write some more stories and side quests and stuff in there just to make sure we've got something to fill these scripts with. And I really wish that it was more a case of, if you don't have a season's worth of story to tell, then either tell a couple stories, like like a Clone War style thing where you get like 3 or 4 episodes, and then you're on to some other storyline. Or mini series are fine too. It's okay. Like, writing to a quota instead of to a natural end of a story is never a good way to get quality. So yeah, this episode definitely feels like they're spinning their wheels a little bit. But we'll see. I'm especially pumped though for Strange New Worlds coming out in a few weeks. For those of you who aren't Trek nerds like me and Joe, he's actually texting me while he's also in the chat room. So yeah, he's definitely supporting. Strange New Worlds is a spinoff that actually is kind of thanks to the fans. So in season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which takes place about 10 years prior to the original series, the Enterprise actually showed up for a minute, and then Captain Pike and Spock were on the Discovery for a while. So they had, reintroduced the original series characters, into the storyline. And it makes sense chronologically they would be there, because even though quick history lesson on Trek, the Cage was the original pilot that was pitched to CBS for the series. And CBS did not pick it up in its current form. They passed on it, and that's where the character of Captain Pike originally came from. The most of the crew was different. So the traditional, like Uhura and Scotty and McCoy and Spock and Kirk and Chekhov and Sulu. The only characters that were in the original pilot that survived to a second pilot that CBS ordered, which is when Kirk and all the characters we know showed up. The only characters that were in that original pilot were Captain Pike and Spock. The first officer was a character played by Majel Barrett, the wife of Gene Roddenberry, and she was only referred to as Number One. So that character never even had a name, but they did end up using the footage from the pilot in the original series. In Joe, help me out. Drop it in the chat for me. The name of the episode when Captain Pike shows up and he's already in the chair, nonverbal. He's in that big black chair, and all he can do is beep once for no and twice for yes or whatever it is. And there's a tribunal on Spock for visiting this planet that was, forbidden. And what they do is they recount the events of why Spock broke the quarantine of this planet and defied Federation law by going there, and he was going there to take Captain Pike there. So they spliced in footage from the original pilot as flashbacks into this episode of the original Star Wars, Jesus, sorry, the original Star Trek. So they ended up using the footage. So they basically acknowledged that the first pilot did happen in the canon of Star Trek. It just happened, before the cast and crew that we know were on board the ship. So those characters still exist in Star Wars, Jesus, I did it again. Star Trek canon. And they've been playing with those characters ever since. So Spock and Pike show up in season 2 of Discovery. And the Enterprise, they write something about something it's like broken from a mission it was on. So it's sidelined. And while they have to repair the Enterprise, and Discovery's without a captain, they're like, all right, well, Pike, you go run this ship for a while we fix your broken one. And based on the popularity of Spock and Pike from their appearances on Discovery, they went ahead and greenlit a whole series called Strange New Worlds that takes place on the Enterprise in the years preceding Kirk taking over as captain. So we've got Rebecca Romijn as number 1, and we've got Ethan Peck. That doesn't sound right, but whoever played Spock on Discovery is reprising the role for Strange New Worlds. So it's all the characters from the original pilot that did not get picked up by CBS on board the Enterprise. And the thing I'm excited for is that it's back to the episodic format. It's not the season-long story arc business of the other shows. So you're just going to get your story of the week. It's a return to form, and I'm really excited to see how that turns out, because I think it should scratch the nostalgia itch for a lot of people. They've made some updates because they make the conceit that basically, the budgets being what they are, like audiences wouldn't put up with 1960s production values in a modern Trek series. So they've had to make some conceits in that respect, as far as there's some holographic technology that didn't exist, but if they had it to make a show like that in the 60s, they would have used it. That's their explanation for getting around that inconsistency. And there's a few other updates and stuff, but they do try to stay true to the spirit of of the original series, and then bring some of the technology more in line with things that have been added to Star Trek lore and canon over the years since the original series aired. So it's really cool. I think it's got a good chance for success, as long as they really lean into the old formula and just do a story of the week sci-fi thing, and try not to fall into this super preachy, transparent social justice trap that the newer stuff has. I always prefer sci-fi to be like an allegory, where it makes difficult topics approachable because it's under the veneer of being, fiction. So you can talk about things like race, or it tends to boil down to race, really, but any social issues that are going on. Environmentalism is another one. Through the lens of sci-fi, it becomes a palatable issue, so it doesn't piss people off. I feel like they've kept up with the spirit of bringing up those topics in modern Trek, but they have dropped a lot of the pretense, where it's just smack you in the face with it. There's no subtlety to it whatsoever. So I'm hoping that this is a little more like story of the week adventure, and less here's our social agenda being shoved down your throat. Whether you agree with it or not, sometimes it's a little too on the nose, and sometimes you just want some escapism in your entertainment. So we'll see how that goes. But it's really cool to see all this stuff coming out and knowing that, you know, they're throwing like everything they've got behind the franchise to see if it'll work. So here's a bummer of a step right here. Thank you, Joe. Joe just chimed in the in the chat. Yeah, so the Menagerie, I think, was the name of the episode that they had yeah, that's a two-parter with Spock facing the tribunal for returning to Talos 4, or trying to return Pike to Talos 4, because part of that planet is they have the ability to, if not heal, fake healing for whatever ails you, basically. So since he's all mangled and in this chair and basically an invalid, Spock was trying to take him back to this planet so he could at least live out his days, whole again, so to speak. But a clever way to reuse footage from the unpicked up pilot. But yeah, this is one of those steps where I wish we had printed pieces, because these two vents on the back, this is the back of the head of the ATST. It really would be better if I had those. These are the sorts of things you can order either through a site called Bricklink from fellow users, or Lego also does have a service called Pick a Brick through their website where you can place orders for specific pieces as long as they're currently in production. So they don't make every piece in their catalog at all times, but as long as they have inventory on hand, you can order individual pieces directly from Lego and get them that way. I don't know of any knockoff companies or clone companies that do the same service. So you're really stuck with Bricklink or Lego itself if you want to assemble this stuff. But see, this is coming together. It's nicely detailed. It's way more detailed than you're ever going to get from an official Lego kit. So if you're more into the details, this is a cool way to, build out your collection and have something kind of unique. But just be aware that, it's not made for play. It's not up to the durability standards that Lego designs are. It's definitely more about just having something nice to put on your shelf and look at and say, wow, isn't that cool? Which I kind of like. Lego's been testing the waters lately with increasing their prices and piece counts and seeing like basically what the market will bear for basically how much can they charge and how big can they make stuff before people just say, that's enough already. And I cry uncle and I just want to, save my wallet a little bit. I mean, like, used to be there was only like one, maybe two Ultimate Collector Series sets in production at a time or on store shelves at a time. Like, you knew as soon as a new one was coming out that the last one was retiring, and that was it. Currently on store shelves, just in the Star Wars Ultimate Collector Series line, you have the Millennium Falcon still. That's been out for, I think it's 5 years now. So they got an $800 Millennium Falcon you can buy. They've got a $700 Star Destroyer that you could buy. Last year they came out with an $800 supposedly minifigure scale AT-AT, which is about twice the size of the play scale ones that they've been doing, which are already massive. And the last one cost $160 as it was. So they've got that out. There's Luke's Landspeeder is coming out May 4th for Star Wars Day. So that's another one hitting store shelves. The Republic Gunship for $350 is also out there. So they've got 4 and soon to be 5 Ultimate Collectors Series sets. And that's not even including the $200 R2-D2 that's out that is not officially an Ultimate Collectors Series, but has the plaque and the treatment. So you've got a $200, a $350, $700, and 2 $800 Star Wars Lego sets out right now. It's getting pretty ridiculous. So this is a fun way to get something that is the same level of detail without being, break the bank. This thing, I think, including shipping from China, ended up costing me like $43 or $45. So perfectly reasonable for about 500 pieces. Small pieces, mind you, but it does the job and it's highly detailed. So it's a cool way to go about doing things. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I know for a fact that this thing that we just built over here is just going to be duplicated on the other side. So what I'm going to do is just build it anyway, knowing that that's going to be one of the next steps. It's a good way to save yourself some sanity, because officially this kit has 306 steps to it. But at step 252, that's the last new step, because it doesn't tell you to build the legs in tandem. It's a mirrored design, so you're not just building two of the same thing. You have to build them backwards of each other. But knowing that it's a symmetrical build, you could just reverse the stuff like I did here and just get it done all in one step. There's no point in digging through all the pieces parts for one piece. See, there it is. And then doing it all over again, just in a mirrored state for the other one. So I just work ahead a little bit when you know what's coming. It saves yourself a lot of headaches in doing that. So good question, Joe. He's asking here, what is the largest set today? Can you buy Lego The Sun yet? It depends on what you mean by largest. If you're going by piece count, and yes, I'm nerd enough to actually know this stuff without having to look it up. So congratulations, you stumbled onto my other nerd hobby. They have this series of art now where it's literally just all little 1x1 pieces like this that go into a big like grid. And they have one that is a world map. If you want to fill out a world map using nothing but little 1x1 tiles like this, they'll sell it to you. I forget what the price is, but it is 11,000 pieces, which it just sounds utterly tedious and absurd to me, honestly. But yeah, you can get yourself an 11,000 piece world map set directly from Lego, and have at it. Build yourself a world map out of 11,000 little guys like this. So piece count wise, that is the biggest. Now, if you're talking size wise, there's a couple different ways, because then you're getting into in which direction are you talking. Tallest right now is the Lego AT-AT. It's 2 feet tall. So it's a friggin' mammoth. Like, it doesn't fit anywhere conveniently. But it is not by any means the longest. The longest kit currently available is they've got a Lego Titanic, which is 53 inches long. It is what's the scale? I think they said it's like 1/150th or something like that. I forget what the scale is, but it's it's $630. It's like, I don't know, 8,000 pieces or something. It's impressive as hell. It's really cool. But it's by far the longest one. And then you get the ones that are like in overall like volume in terms of like length, width, height. And then you get into stuff like they've got a model of the Colosseum in Rome, which is like 9,000 pieces and $500 or something. It's, again, a whole bunch of little stuff like this. Super repetitive, but hyper detailed, but that's kind of tall, kind of wide, and kind of deep as well. So that one overall, I think, might be one of the biggest sets. Or they've got a whole bunch of football stadiums from Europe that they sell as well that are roughly the same footprint, but I think like a lower piece count or something than the Colosseum is. So yeah, depending on what you mean by largest, there's a few different ways you can interpret that. The point is, Lego has discovered that all of us kids from the 80s that grew up on Lego now have disposable income, and they are going to do their damnedest to make sure that we dispose of our income into their coffers. For example, how about, I love this one. You can buy a Nintendo set, a literal Nintendo Entertainment System from Lego. It's $230, and it is damn near a 1-to-1 scale recreation of the original NES, complete with a cartridge that goes in and springs down. If you remember the old flip top design before they redesigned the NES towards the end of its run to match the Super NES. So it's got the little spring top thing where you put the cartridge in, you press it down, and it locks into place, and you can close the flap on it and everything. So yeah, they've got all kinds of crazy stuff that is clearly targeted explicitly at kids of the 80s. They just came out with a Lego DeLorean from Back to the Future. That is it's about a foot long, so it's like very detailed. You can rebuild it into any of the 3 movies worth of versions. So you can put the giant hook on it to catch lightning from the tower in the first one. You can fold the wheels down into flight mode and put Mr. Garbage or whatever they call it on the back, Mr. Fusion, to run it off of make it a flying version from the second movie, or even put like train wheels on it for the part 3 version from the Old West. So yeah, they're doing everything they can. Oh, here we go. We got I believe Talking into Infinity is actually my brother John from NerfHerder. Because I'm assuming that his co-host on his Dream Theater podcast doesn't have a band to have a drummer for it. But yeah, so Lego Coliseum, it is huge and looks amazing. I'll tell you what you do if you want to not spend a fortune on Lego, but still be impressed as hell with this stuff. Find yourself a Lego brand store where these massive sets are sold, and just go drool. like there's one on the east side of Cleveland. It's about a 30-minute drive from me. And I just go in there sometimes pretending like I'm looking for a set that I know they don't have in stock, just as an excuse to go and drool over everything and then be like, oh, you don't have the thing I was looking for. I guess I'll check again some other time. When really all I'm doing is I'm going there to see the stuff in person, because it's just incredible. I mean, if I could, I would buy all of it, but I can't. So, by the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I'm not just fidgeting. These things don't quite work spacing wise. I had to pull them apart because this has to clip into this, and I did not have clearance to do it. So this is the sort of thing that Lego would never be on board with, because that's just way too fragile. This whole thing just fell off. So yeah, you kind of get stuck on these things a little bit. Like that, I think that's how that goes. Yeah, this is the sort of stuff. I'm glad this stuff is not expensive, because with the tolerances and some of the design issues with some of these things, I would never super glue actual Lego, but for knockoff stuff like this, absolutely. If it needs glued to stay in place, just glue it. Who cares? Just get the job done. So now this is another step where it's not really clear how this goes together, but I'm just kind of guessing that these things seem to line up together. So I'm going to put them together anyway. So this is definitely not like kid-friendly stuff. So we mashed that together. I lost something. Oh, there we go. I lost it right there. So now I got to figure out how to fidget this thing back on. All right, good enough. It's got these little guys, and then this clips up to what? The hose goes somewhere now, doesn't it? Okay. All right, so I guess this is saying that we run this hose into here. And then this thing kind of clips on the other side. If it'll stay, which it probably won't. It's definitely one of those, like, if it was Lego, it would work just fine, but this is probably going to pop off in like 3 seconds. Yeah. Thanks for bearing with me here. I'm not sure you do. I've talked to your wife. Lego EVH's guitar. Thrasher, it's funny you mention that, because they actually do have a Lego guitar kit. they've got a Fender Stratocaster guitar kit. Steve has it actually, and you could build it in red or black. They give you the pieces for either color. The one thing you can't really customize unless you buy replacement parts is it does have a white pick guard on it. But that kit is also a little bit insane. So you build the guitar and it's got like strings. So yeah, so talking into infinity is just catching up on the stream. Yeah, this is the kit that does not stand up when it's finished. That's what this is for. This is step one. Step one is build this thing so you have something to set it on after you finish building it. So not the best, but yeah. So not only do you build the Stratocaster in whatever color you choose, complete with like I said, they actually give you real string that you string along the frets to simulate the guitar strings, but then you build the amp, the Marshall amp that goes with it, and it even has like all the tubes and the wiring and stuff in there. Like it's super detailed. It's really cool. It's $100, but I think it's actually it's small for what you get, but you're paying for all the alternate pieces to make it either color, and the real detail comes in the amp. So it's a weird little thing that's like you won't see those details once it's built. It's more like an Easter egg during the building process. But it's just cool to know it's there. Like it's one of those ones where I think I might pick that up. I guess I could build it on stream sometime if you guys want me to, but you know, I kind of like the idea that I stole this whole concept from a more popular YouTube channel, and they build the actual expensive actual Lego kits. So since this is a knockoff of their show concept, I'm doing knockoffs of Lego. So we're not going to do that. Another thing I thought of though, if you guys are into it, I have so much actual Lego just stored away, and a lot of times they will revisit sets and release like newer versions, like the $200 R2D2 out right now, for example. My brother can attest to this. I bought him the version that came out in 2012. So they've you know, now that's 10 years later, they introduced it was actually 9 years. It came out last year, but they introduced a new version of R2D2 with like, you know, newer parts and whatnot. But I would totally be down if you guys wanted me to bust out like the old R2D2, for example, and put that one on stream. We can build ourselves a $200 R2D2 from 10 years ago. So yeah, if whatever you guys want to see me build on here, I'm totally down for it. And anyone ever wants to join me on stream, that's cool too. Like, hey, the more the merrier. That way I don't have to, you know, fill all the blank airspace. Oh, we got some chat going on now. So we got my brother and Thrasher talking in the chat. Thrasher saying, let's design all the Star Wars Celebration logos. Like, you mean come up with new ones or try to like build them out of Lego? Because there's some insane stuff that people do, like art wise with Lego. It's pretty nuts. Okay, I'm confusing myself now. Give me a second to think through this. I think it goes like that, I guess. All right, we're gonna go with that. That sounds right. I hope that's right. Yeah, it looks like it's right. Okay, so we're moving on. So yeah, this is like the anti-Star Wars edition of Let's Build Something Star Wars, where I've done nothing but talk about Star Trek and Lego the whole time. So, you know, if you were hoping to tune in and hear some good riveting Star Wars discussions, you're not going to hear that, because for those of you who weren't here at the start of the stream, there's really not a whole lot of Star Wars going on right now. It's gone a little bit quiet, waiting for Celebration next month. Anything Star Wars related that does come out Celebration wise, we will be discussing on the main show, which is usually every other Wednesday, and you know, unless life gets in the way like it did this last time. And that's where you'll hear all of our Celebration talk. We've got 2 more episodes leading up to Celebration coming up. We got one this Wednesday at 8:15 on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, as long as my brother's out of Facebook jail by then or doesn't get back into it. And we've got one on May 11th. May 25th is the day before Celebration begins. JT and I will already be in Anaheim at that point and probably doing some pre-celebration celebrating of our own. So the chances of us hopping on stream are pretty slim. But there is a chance that thanks to NerfHerder Games, Steve's Twitch gaming channel that he got going, maybe you'll catch a gaming stream that night. Who knows? We'll see what's going on there. So plenty of ways to get your NerfHerder fix between WTF Friday and NerfHerder Games on its own channel, and then of course our regular Wednesday shows. So we're spreading it out. The brand is happening. So we'll see. As we're busy making what can only be the turrets for the front of the face of this thing. Now you notice that we've been on stream now for coming up on an hour and a half, and we haven't even begun to build like the exterior of this thing yet. So as you could tell, like that's the problem with this thing. This is going to take a long time to build, guys. We're gonna have to be very patient in building this thing, but we'll get there eventually. I think WTF Friday might be overtaken for a while with builds, because otherwise this thing is going to be like a 6-month project to get done. But we'll see how it goes. So we got big ass gun, good to go. Now I don't know what the hell else we build for the rest of this section, but I purposely segmented this out. All right, so we're building the face now. This is going to end up being the front face that attaches to this. So we'll get through at least the face. We won't have walls or a ceiling on this thing. A roof, as most people call it. But we will get there eventually. That's what these containers are, actually. These are the walls of the head, and this is the roof. So I got these things pre-sorted for whenever we get back on stream to finish this thing out. But, in the meantime, we got this going. So steering back onto Star Wars for a second, anyone who wants to chime in on this one. I've been getting the emails leading up to Celebration and kind of wondering like what the main focus of this year's event is going to be. Like in 2019, it was the lead up to the Rise of Skywalker. So that was pretty obvious. We knew that was the highlight panel. Prior to that, it was 2016. That was very Rogue One heavy. I'm sorry, 2016 was Celebration Europe, wasn't it? Yeah. And that was Rogue One. And then 2015 was Force Awakens, obviously. 2012 would have been that was Clone Wars was carrying the torch for Star Wars at that time, because that was after the movies were done and before this, that was right before the sale to Disney. So the only thing going from Lucasfilm at the time was the Clone Wars series. Or is that the? No, I think I'm mixing stuff here. I think 2010 might have been the Clone Wars one. Anyway, point is, this is the first one in a long time where there was no, major upcoming project. We've got all the Disney Plus shows, but we don't have anything else really on the horizon. So what do you think is going to take center stage? What's the main keynote going to be at this celebration? I would love to know what you guys think. Thrasher's chiming in. He says it's going to be Kenobi. Good chance of that. It seems like they're kind of treating this like a movie of sorts, right? Like they're getting Ewan McGregor back. They're getting Hayden Christensen back. They're, all this other stuff going on. And it was a movie script to begin with. So I think we're going to see some really high production on this one. So there's a good chance it could be Kenobi. John chiming in says Rogue Squadron. Maybe. I wonder what you guys think about that. The last update we had on Rogue Squadron was that it was delayed indefinitely because Patty Jenkins had her previous commitments delayed, which put the timeline in jeopardy for Rogue Squadron. So I wonder what's going to happen with that one. Actually, that's a good question right there. So yeah, I mean, it's Celebration. I'm looking forward to going to it, but I wonder what the main headline coming out of it is going to be. I mean, there's so many different facets of Star Wars now between the gaming and the High Republic initiative with all the publishing and comics and whatnot. We got all the Disney Plus verse growing with the Mando verse, as they're calling it. So there's any number of things that could take center stage, but none of them is like the head and shoulders above everything else. I think we've all agreed that like the movies are always going to be like top canon, followed by the shows secondarily, and then you get down to like the video games and the books and the animated series and stuff like that. So I wonder what the main focus is going to be, or if it's going to be more of like a group effort. So it'll be interesting. There's John ruining my fun again. So apparently the keynote is going to be a massive announcement of everything that's upcoming. So that right there is kind of interesting because that's going to be like a group effort sort of thing. I'll consider it a group effort then. The breaches have been filled. There you go. That's my Krennic impression. Yeah, so I guess they're going to announce everything instead of focus on one solid project. That'll be interesting to see what's coming out, especially because I think we know most of what's coming out. That all came out, at the Disney Investors thing or D23, whatever it was last year. They announced like all the shows in production of some form and everything. So I wonder what's going to be truly new, or if it's just going to be updates on what stuff we've already heard. Because we know there's a bunch of shows we've heard nothing about that were already announced, like the Acolyte or Rangers of the New Republic. There was like 10 overall Disney Plus shows that they were talking about with their announcement. So I wonder if it's going to be updates on those things or something new that we haven't even heard of. In any case, you know that there's going to be some sort of big announcement. They don't do a celebration without having something worth paying attention to. So we'll see. But yeah, don't be surprised if you're turning to the NerfHerder Council for boots on the ground coverage of Celebration. We're going to be too busy celebrating to be doing boots on the ground anything. We're just going to be doing our best to keep our boots on the ground instead of our backs on the ground. So we'll see how that goes. But you'll hear plenty more about that on Wednesday and on the subsequent episode on the 11th, I'm sure. But we are coming to the end here. We've only got this handful of pieces left, and we will be done. But you see what I'm saying? Like, all these pieces are so tiny. It's hard to feel like you're getting anywhere as you're building. And that's one thing that Lego official designs definitely have going for them is you feel like a sense of accomplishment and progress as you go. This, not so much. I mean, you'll get there eventually, but take your time. Take your time. What do we got here? Yeah, so this should be a control panel, but you're not going to get a printed control panel in a knockoff kit. You'd have to buy from somewhere else. And apparently I have an extra piece. So, oh well, not a problem. So I think we just finish this little bit off by clipping this in here. If I don't break something in the attempt. I remember this being really hard to do the first time too. It's broke. I broke it. Okay. It just didn't want me to end the stream yet. That's all it is. But you see how fragile this is? Like, one, you've got all the stress of the clips, which are problematic enough. But then you get these pieces that just like dangle out in nowhere. They're completely unsupported. Definitely makes for difficult building process. Like, I mean, there's nothing holding this thing in place. It's really just a matter of don't touch it. If you've got kids, this is not the kit for them. Do not let them anywhere near this thing. So I think it goes like that. I guess that little overlap there is the only thing that's supposed to be holding these pieces in. And clearly it doesn't do that good of a job. So we're going to try this one more time here. Again, hoping that I don't. Okay, and see, that time it played along. And we've got, the start of an ATST here. All right, so with that, I think the building for tonight is going to be over with once I put this piece on that fell off. Now, the nice thing about having built ahead and knowing what's coming up is that I can give you a little bit of a sneak preview. So we'll get to the sides and the other stuff later, but to give you an idea of how fidgety this thing is and what's coming up in future episodes, here is the entire bottom half of this thing. And you can totally see like the sheer amount of detail going into this thing and all the little pieces parts. Like there is not a single big piece in this entire leg construct here. It's just ridiculous little bits all connected through, even down to the feet. You get the little, like the bucket handles and stuff as details on the toes of these things and little droid arms and stuff to dangle off of. It's ridiculous. It's friggin' ridiculous. So it does stand up just barely on its own here. But as soon as you put any weight on this thing, yeah. So it's very weak in the ankles. And I haven't even tried to do anything with this with the head attached. And even this little bit of fidgeting, stuff's already falling off of it. You see, I already broke stuff off this toe. So this is definitely one that once it's built, you put it up and you hold your breath because it's not going to stand on its own. But you get some good detail this way. I mean, it looks fantastic, but it's at the expense of durability. Let's see if I can share a tab here. I'll show you like for reference. So you see this like triangular extrusion right here at the front of the base. How would I do this? Let's try this. So if I stop sharing that guy, there we go. All right. Hi. And if I share a Chrome tab, I happen to have a picture of an actual ATST queued up here. And you can see where they're getting all the detail from idea-wise. But it's a fragile build for sure. But credit to them for at least the realism of it all. But yeah, so that's what we've got so far. We've got the legs. Those will be disassembled and ready to go for whenever we get to that build step. But that's what we've got so far. We've got the superstructure of the head of an AT-ST going. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. We will be back on Wednesday for our regular NerfHerder Council on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. You can totally hit us up on social media. Don't know why I said totally, but whatever. We are available on Twitter at NHC Podcast. You can find us by searching for NerfHerder Council on YouTube or on Twitch. You can also check out what is currently Steve's side project on NerfHerder Games. You look for that on Twitch. He's currently streaming right now, I think, unless he signed off by now. So flip over there and see what he's up to. And we will catch you on Wednesday for our regular show. We will be back, obviously, with more of the WTF Fridays and the chill build to get this thing finished up. And if you got any suggestions on things you want to see built or other ideas of content you want to see on these WTF shows, let us know. We're always looking for ideas and engagement. So with that, I'm going to sign off for tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time.